All right, welcome everyone. Let me make sure I'm recording one more time. Yeah, welcome everyone to the GDC Club Lore Workshop. Just kidding, this is the Portfolio Websites Workshop. That wasn't much of a surprise. We already announced this like weeks ago. Anyways, welcome to the Portfolio Websites. So yeah, I'm Lawrence. We're going to be talking about what exactly is a portfolio. All right, I'm gonna assume this is fine now. Cool. All right, so yeah, offers insights into your thoughts and process behind each step. Depending on what type of project you're working on, whether it's software engineering projects, game design projects, or art, it depends like how much insight you actually want to give or how much you want to let the work actually talk for itself. So this is just like the four general rules of these portfolio websites before we start going into the more specific parts of it. The first part, of course, is make sure the site's easy to read. Text should have a nice contrast with the background. You guys all know the graphic design is my passion. Make sure you pick simple and professional fonts. Obviously, don't do a bunch of Comic Sans, or unless if you're really trying to show off a really quirky personality. But most of the time, you still want to show off your personality, but still keep it professional. Easy to navigate. Navigation links should be consistent throughout the website, and you should clarify any unique interactions. I was going to show an error that I made with an earlier iteration of one of my websites, but it's not working for some reason. So I guess there was an example would be if you have like a navigation bar where you're like, let's say you want to show off your software engineering projects, your game dev projects, and your art projects all in one in the nav bar. That nav bar should be consistent in its location throughout the website. It shouldn't be changing locations. Like it shouldn't be in the top right corner on one page and then in the middle of the website and the next page and then in another page it shouldn't be at the bottom of the website. Keep it consistent. That way people know what they're looking for and all of that. And then have a primary focus. A lot of this, including your resumes and when you're applying, it's all about branding. It's all about highlighting what your strongest skills are. You still are able to place in other skills and hobbies, but as supplementary to show that like, oh yeah, you're well-rounded, but you do want to focus in on like one or two key skills. Mobile friendly. This is one that a lot of people don't think about a lot when they're first making websites. This is something that I've gotten a lot of feedback from whenever I make my websites and I send it for feedback. Most recruiters will be looking at your website through a PC, a monitor, something like that's a more landscape horizontal view. But in the off chance that they're on the go or something like that, or at a career fair, they may just look at your website right then and there. And it is also easier to translate your website from a mobile design to a desktop design. I'll show you an example with Nandan's website, which I think is done really well. Does this concept really well. So first off, we're going to go specifically into software engineering portfolios. So the main components of a software engineering portfolio includes, on the left, it's like pretty much your essentials, like stuff that you would place on your resume. Your about me, you don't typically see on a resume, but if you're making a portfolio site, it's nice to include a little like what do you specialize in, what are the languages you use, and all of that. Your work experience, education, and maybe a copy of your resume. And then on the right-hand side, this is more stuff specific to software engineering stuff. You want your projects, and within your projects, you want to include complaining about yeah. In your projects, you want to include a link to your project, whether that's to the actual place where you deployed your project, or if that's to like a GitHub repo. You also want a brief description or a more in-depth description, depending on what you're going for about your projects. You want links to any socials, maybe your LinkedIn, your GitHub repository, like your Instagram, if you do a lot of like stuff there. List of languages that you use and a list of tools. And we'll see all of these in the websites that I'll be pulling up later. So how should I make one? So if you're a software engineer or if you're a computer science major, you should already have a GitHub repository. Well, if you're in this club, you should already have a GitHub Your GitHub can be used as a great repository or as a great portfolio website without having to really do anything. There is like this little title card that you could add to your GitHub repo. So it like has like a little bit of an about me, and then you could add in details about yourself and show a bit more personality that way. And we'll see that with one of the portfolios that I'll pull up later. You could also utilize READMEs a lot in your repositories. We'll see later. You can use the README to either show documentation or talk about the process while you're working on these projects. And the other way you can make a website is code your own website. This workshop is just my propaganda on why front end web development's cool. But you can make really good websites with just HTML and CSS. You don't need JavaScript, but you can use JavaScript, and it does look better and in the long run. Front end's also like pretty easy to get into, and it's also like a pretty good skill to have just in general, especially if you're going into like full stack software engineering. And then you can also host these for free on like stuff like GitHub Pages. I'll send links to a bunch of these resources after the workshop. So let's get into some examples with some of the workshops or some of the websites. So first off, I'm gonna show off like an example of like a GitHub portfolio that isn't a website, but it's just someone's GitHub. This is Mo. I don't know. She has she has like this title card, and it's basically just a giant README, and then you could go in and then add in your information and whatever points you want to point out. Like you could talk about what you're currently learning, what your strengths are. So she talks about using React a lot, and then how to contact her. And she also includes her socials, which in this case is LinkedIn and GitHub. And then from here, you could also place pins for what your most important projects are. What's nice about pins is that you can also place them on, you could pin projects that aren't, that you were involved with, but don't show up on your regular repository. So this is like an old example of a project I used to pin where the first Cowboy Zelda, it wasn't under my repository. I would pin it from Tony's repository, and then it would show up here. Like you can see here, she pins stuff from the CPP She Codes account, from different GitHub organizations that she's in as well. Your contributions is sometimes recruiters will be looking in your contributions. It's not too much of an important issue. You just want to make sure that it shows that you're like contributing to projects, and yeah. Next up, we have Nandan's website. Nandan's website uses React, which is a JavaScript library, and then HTML and CSS. What's nice about Nandan's website is that if you take this website and then you use it on the phone, it still works very nicely, and he didn't have to like modify much. Everything scales properly, and you can still view it very nicely through a mobile lens. And he basically gets this by considering just like having everything scroll down. Like all of his components are pretty much just like in this vertical linear thing, and then you just keep scrolling up and down, and it's fairly simple. He has his about me here, and he also goes into some hobbies that he does on his free time, which shows a bit of his personality since he has a job. He goes into a lot of what he focuses a lot more on what he does professionally. So like here he's a huge description for what he did at Storm 8, and then he goes into his internship and his other jobs here. And it's fine if your work experience is like, if you don't have any work experience or it's just retail, you could focus on those because those still show soft skills that are like important. Like here with the tutoring job, he talks about being able to teach students of different subjects and then being sort of well-rounded and being able to build relationships with the students and stuff like that. And then here you see that he shows off his shows off all of his languages and tools that he knows. And what's actually cool with this is that you can actually spin these around. It's really cool. I like this feature a lot. It's a very small touch, but if you figure it out, then it's like, oh, that's neat. And then here, this is where he talks about his projects. since Nandan already has like a lot of work experience on his resume, his projects aren't as in depth in terms of like information as you'll see with some of the other portfolio websites, but they still hold a good amount of information. It's nice that he contains it all consistently within a short summary. Over here, like he talks about his master thesis, the engine he's working on, an app that he's made, a game he's published to the store, his hackathons, and all that. Yeah. What's nice is that you also have the link here, and then if I click on this, I think, yeah. So it'll send you to like the Play Store where he published his game. If you click on like his master thesis here, goes to the Cal State website where he published his paper. So the link is very important. And then he also does this small thing at the bottom where he places like two hashtags about what the primary thing about his projects are. So like the most important thing here is Game Engine, OpenGL, and all of that. And then here he also has testimonials from other people that he knows. Jonathan Fong, Kyle Tershik, Lance Dahl. They're all previous members of the club. And he places like where they've worked. And he has like a little contact me, which is a nice thing to have. And also this globe spins. You can move it. I like the 3D model stuff, but I'm biased. Cool. Next up is my website. This one is a bit more. This one isn't as mobile friendly. If you go on this website, actually right now I did retool it so it is mobile friendly. I had to like basically code 2 versions of the components. That's not the best way to go about this. It should have been more scalable, to be honest. But pretty much the issue with this website on mobile is that if you squish it down, like these things. It basically like zooms in on just like the introduction, and then it's like weird to navigate. I think if I go to inspect, see if I look at the website from here on mobile, not the best. But if I refresh it and then it goes into the mobile version of the website, which it does scale a bit better. So like the components are more in like this linear fashion. Similar to Nandan, I have like a little about me. It is a bit longer, I think, so I probably should look into cutting that down. I do talk about my education, and then I have my programming languages here and my skills here and the tools that I've worked on here. I talk about my work experience here, and then I have my software engineering and my game dev portfolios here. I also mention my extracurriculars since I don't have much on the work experience end, and then I have a link to all of my socials here. To be honest, I don't really need that emergency artist one. I should probably remove that. Here, let's go to software engineering. So I have my projects listed here. What I did is that I placed in like the key parts of my like the technologies I used for my project. So like with the VG Backlogs website, I talked about what I use for front end, the back end, and then the database and how I deployed it. For other projects like this Blender plugin, I just talked about, I used Python and then the Blender API. And then like here, I talk about how I implemented advertisements in this mobile app and stuff like that. But yeah. And then last, we also have Josh Morrows. With Josh, a lot of his, it shows off. Okay, yeah, so this is coming from his website. He gives a demo. He gives a video demo, which is really cool, of like how his different tools work, and then it gives like there's like a brief summary, and then if you click on it, you get more. It expands more. He shows like different images, GIFs, and stuff like that on how his tools work. All really cool stuff. And then yeah. So that's it so that's on the software engineering side. Now we'll go more into if you're actually looking into specifically game design or game development. This is a little bit different, but a lot of it is the same as you've noticed here. A lot of it does carry over from the software engineering stuff. But I think the key difference is how you describe your game projects, in which we'll see in the examples. What's really important is having some sort of video or image showing off the game. Whether that's like a couple of screenshots, a GIF of like what you've made, or even just like 30 seconds of gameplay. Get the point across of like what your game is and all of that. You want to. What would be really nice is that if you break down your design process, bless you. There was a portfolio, but I think the original user took it down. That was really cool. He was a level designer at Blizzard, and basically one of his projects that he did on his spare time was he broke down like one of the opening areas of Sekiro. And that website, he basically remade the whole level in Unity, and he broke down like why that opening area works so well as like a beginner area for stuff like that. If the website was still up, I would show you guys, but unfortunately it is down. But we do also have another portfolio on here, Seth, who does break down the design process for his games really well. Focus on what you contributed, and then also contribute to give contribution to others and what they've worked on, especially in like larger group projects like the game pitches or like if you're in a group game jam. And then links to the published build of the game is always wonderful. Now, how would you make one? Similarly, you could also be a web designer, go to web designing route. That's all the stuff that I mentioned from earlier, HTML, JavaScript, React. You could also make a page on itch.io. You could also show off games that you didn't particularly work on, but you could save them in like a playlist sort of thing. Or if someone could adds you as a contributor to that game, you could show it publicly on your on your thing. And then there's also website creation platforms, Squarespace, Wix, Google Sites, Weebly. I'm sure you guys probably heard of Squarespace a lot because a lot of YouTubers or streamers get sponsored for that. These are like very beginner friendly, you're more focused on like the design aspect of these websites. Usually there's like a free subscription, and then if you want like more features for your website and stuff like that, there's like a bonus tier and all of that. This workshop is sponsored by Squarespace. But yeah, so we're gonna go into Seth's and Kyle's websites. So Seth's website is really nice. It's hosted on GitHub Pages. He has a light and dark mode, which I really like. It works really well. So you could go into his projects, which is his primary focus. And then his focus here is on being a game designer. He has 3 projects on here, but I'm sure he's worked on a lot more. So let's look into like one of the projects that he's made. This is Branch Battles. He gives a little summary of like the project. This is
pardon.
Oh, yes.
The stream isn't moving.
Oh, the screen isn't moving?
Yeah, you're back.
Cool. All right. Yeah, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. School Wi-Fi sucks. Yeah, so basically Seth solo developed this game. He mentions it at the beginning, and then he talks about what engine he used, and then he talks about the time frame that he gave himself to work on this project. And he also mentions here that he's still updating the project that he still updates it based on playtester feedback, which is an important skill to have. He gives an overview of what exactly does this project contain. It's basically your MVP. Think of it like your MVP slide in a presentation. And then he talks about his contributions as a designer. He talks about his ideas for the movement, and then he even talks about his original ideas for stuff like that and what inspired him. He talks about the different units that his characters have and the different states of the army and all of that. It's a super in-depth, basically a game design document. It's a super in-depth game design document for his project, and it's very, very well done. And then, like, if we're gonna look at one of his other projects, this is more of like a study. Talks about making his own NavMesh Pathfinder. This is a project if Dr. Egger ever brings back the Game AI class and you guys take it. This is something that you'll run into. This is a really fun project. And yeah, talks about like what he learned and then how he expanded on it with a second project with the maze generation with Prim's algorithm. And then similarly, he talks about his submission to the GDC Halloween Game Jam. So he talks about his contributions as a game designer, and I believe, oh no, he solo developed this one. Okay, yeah. And then if you look here, he has an about me. Talks about he's a graduating CS major, and then talks about his like what he's passionate about. He enjoys running, rock climbing, playing games, of course, reading, and then hanging out with friends. And then he talks about his experience here. And then he also has his resume attached here. Next up, we have Kyle Tershik. Kyle is UI engineer on the Call of Duty games. He was also one of the previous club presidents, and he was here for a workshop last semester. He showed his portfolio is about outdated because he hasn't really had a need to update it in a while. This is a project that he worked on during his internship at Blizzard. And then he talks about what his tools that he used for this project, and then like the time frame of what this was. Gives like a bit of a smaller summary, and he actually includes a video here. Yeah, really cool. And then he goes into other projects. Some projects you can't really like give a link to or display. So you're best off showing a video. So with these projects, because they're more VR oriented, most of the focus is just showing off on like a really good game demo. Like think of it as if you're presenting to E3 or E3's dead. If you're presenting to, the Game Awards. That's what replaced it. Unfortunate. But yeah, so you basically give a really, really cool game demo. This is one of the VR games that he worked on. I believe he did this in the lab, in the VR lab. But yeah, really cool stuff. But you can also download the demo. Yeah. And he has a little about me section. Talks about his passion for games, and then talks about like the stuff that he's done during college. He founded the SGDA, which we are definitely still very involved with. I stared at Melvin. That's on the game designer side. Now we're gonna go into more of the artist side of stuff. And pretty much the artist, it's a bit different. Like you still have your about me, the work experience, education, copy of your resume, but you on your art pieces, you want to focus in on your strongest type of artwork and stuff like that. You want to segment your work into different parts, and we'll see this with the examples. I think I'm not an artist myself. I mostly do it as a hobby, but the people that have it will see more in their examples and stuff like that. Focus on your strongest skill. Basically, your homepage should show like what your strongest skill is, whether that's storyboarding, that's character concepts, that's visual development, and then show your other works as well, as mentioned previously. And then you could categorize your work. So like if you did like background paint, like what were the different types of background paints you did? So like if you did like an entire segment of background paints inspired by Avatar, you group them into the Avatar folder. You group stuff into like a comic narrative folder, or you also group stuff into like children's stories and stuff like that. Similarly to the game design stuff, since most artists programming, unless if you're more of a technical artist, but that's a bit more rare. Usually you just want to keep it simple. Use your website, make your website with something like Squarespace, Wix, Google Sites, Weebly, those types of website web creation platforms. And now we're going to go into examples from people who actually focus in on art and stuff like that. So with John, his website was made with Wix. He focused a lot more on storyboarding. So he gives like a little about of himself, and then he leads to different parts of his project. First part here, animations. You can see his works. He includes videos of like what he's done and stuff like that. And all of his animation related projects here. Since he's a storyboard, he focused a lot more on animatics. So you can see like the different projects that he has, and then he also gives credit. Like if he uses a character from a different from that isn't his, he gives credit to where he's used those projects from, or those characters from. Dachi is sending me memes on Instagram. Okay, but yeah, so basically highlights like his the key skills that he's worked on and the key projects that he's worked on, and he places them into like different categories. And from here, you also has his contact. You could place in your contact information or reach out to him. This is Jasmine. Jasmine focuses a lot more on prop design. As you can see here, this is her homepage. Focuses on prop design, and she also does a lot of background work with different projects. And with the background work, sometimes you do want to explain a bit more as to why you decided to make things, design things a certain way. She provides like the outline and then the colored in version of her works and all of that. From here, you could also see like a demo reel. That's also very important for being an artist. And like, why is this? Oh, okay. Yeah, and as she talks and gives links to her all the different works displayed in the demo reel. Has different different works like stop motion animation, live action projects, and then also graphic design. And then she also has like an about me, and then an resume and a way to contact her. And then next up, Dora. Dora focuses a lot more on background painting and visual development. So you can see here, VizDev is like the first thing you see on her homepage. And then, as I mentioned before, like the work is categorized into the different parts. So if you click on like this, like Wind in the Willows, it will have a bunch of different background works that she's worked on for this particular project. And then she even includes like small descriptions as to how she made it, and then what was her process behind it, and all that. Yeah, this is more focused on specifically background rather than just visual development. Some of it is carried over from the VizDev side, but VizDev is sort of like this all-encompassing of like what should the visual style of this project be, and then she also has like other works like traditional paintings, and then also she published a book recently, and then in her about me gives a bit more of her personality, and then her resume here. And then finally we have Kelly. Kelly focuses a lot more on visual development and character design. So some of her different works has like different background arts, and then like there was like an avatar position open recently, so her and Dora applied to this. So for here, she gives like a whole like detailed description of like what she worked on, what inspired these artworks, and then why those inspirations are important to the overall setting of the world. Talks about interior design, and then different parts like that, and even different characters of this this would be part of the Avatar. This does feel like very natural to the Avatar universe. And then if we look here, we have character design. So she does like different character pieces and stuff like that. A lot of character designs. And then if we go into here, like, it's lagging. There we go. Yeah, so different sketches and expressions for all the different characters. And then something that's important, this is sort of like in general for software engineering, game design, and art, but I think you see this a lot more in the game design and art realm of things. If you have work that has not been published yet, and your contract like is finished and stuff like that, you could still put it on your website. However, it has to be locked behind a password. You may have seen like they'll like ask you for a portfolio, and then they'll also ask for a password. This is typically where the password is. I think Kelly worked on like a DreamWorks movie that hasn't been released, so that's why. So that's the stuff that's been locked behind that. She also talks about like the books that she's worked on, and then goes more into like her personal artworks, and then has a little about me as well. But yeah, that's pretty much yeah. And then yeah, thank you guys for coming. That was an overview of like portfolio websites and stuff like that. I'll send links to like how you could get started on your own. How like as I mentioned earlier, like what you could do to get started on your website, whether that's like Wix, Squarespace, GitHub Pages, and things like that. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining today. Are there any questions? Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we definitely have time. Yeah, so GitHub Pages, there's this whole like website that pretty much just walks you through how to get started with it. But pretty much you want to make a GitHub repository that has that has your username and then .github.io. And then from here, whether you're using a desktop terminal, you could copy it into your local folder, and then you'll clone the repo, and then you could get started. If you're just doing pure HTML and CSS and JavaScript, you just create an index.html index.html folder, and then that's the first page that will show up. And then you commit it and push it to your branch. Let me see if I could pull up an example of an older website I had. This wasn't working earlier, but we'll try again. Yeah, Sam has an example here. If you look in the chat, I think that's something that's important. If you're going to just software engineering and you're not like particularly like front dev oriented, I think it's fine to like just have your GitHub just your GitHub repository be your portfolio. It definitely looks a lot better that you have this like a portfolio website of your own, but I think like your GitHub accounts like serves perfectly fine as just it's just like your projects. So this is like with just HTML and CSS. There's no JavaScript. So everything's still pretty interactable, and there's even some like transitions that you can do. So like you notice how this like fades in the background. Like the text changes depending on what you're hovering over here. I used to do a lot of video stuff, and yeah, generally it's the same. Like I used to be like super trying to like implement my art into like stuff, but then I was like I'm not that great at it. But yeah. And this is what my projects things used to look like. And then because I couldn't upload these on itch.io because the file size was too damn big, I created download links on the GitHub repository. Granted, probably not the best idea. I probably should have just linked a video as to how the project actually worked. I have my resume here. This is not really a great example of the resume page. Like I could have made better use of this. This is just copying what was from my resume. And I could have definitely made a much better example or use out of it. And then I put relevant courses here. You could place it if you want to. Relevant courses is not super important unless you're trying to go into master's or higher education and stuff like that. Oh, hi, Josh. You just missed it. Guys, Josh showed up like an hour late. If you want an example of a website that is horrible on mobile, let me pull this up and see if it works. But yeah, if you also if you guys need to go, the workshop's pretty much over. I'm just going over other stuff that Sam mentioned and then other stuff, but like it's pretty much over, and you guys are free to go if needed.
Oh wait, Larry.
Oh, what's up, Solomon?
The thing.
The stream froze?
No, not the stream. The thing that I mentioned to you last night.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let me pull that up.
Go forth and engage.
Wait, that's such a fire workshop idea. Give people 2 weeks to make a video. All right. Solomon, are you cool with me sending this link into the meeting gen chat?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna put in the link to this video.
Sounds
I'm gonna
good.
put in the description.
Yeah. That's a fun 2012. Very cool. But yeah. Wow, this is still loading. See, this is an example of a bad website. I tried using like the 3D graphics thing from before, except I was new to it and I didn't know how to optimize it. So sometimes it takes like 5 minutes to load. But yeah, anyways, that's that. Thank you all for coming.